Hello, friends. I am going on another unannounced live stream today. Once again, I'm not trying to take away attention from other things going on in the world, people that could be using the attention. So if you're here, it's probably because um, you are hanging out on a live stream anyway. So yeah, just gonna get some stuff together. Well, let's just do this. Beep, beep. And there's my little flag. If you are interested in supporting refugees dealing with um, having to flee their homes, or people that need support for medical assistance, food, shelter, psychological support, there is a little link down there that I would recommend donating to. If you have the means, I made a donation there, and I was looking for things that wouldn't necessarily support war efforts, because I'm mostly a pacifist, but will support the people that are suffering as a result. So, with that said, we can get on to actually building something, get back into the stuff that we've been working on, which is this weather app. So, where we got to yesterday was we were dealing with, we were dealing with setting a custom location. So if I say like Bend, Oregon, I want that to actually update on my response here. So now we can see the difference between Brooklyn and Bend based on my search. So let's see how we're actually doing that. If I bring my code editor up and over, the way we are doing that is by setting the location, and if the query params has a location on it, we will update the location object and use that to set a cookie. So that when we look in our application, we should see the location is set to Bend, Oregon. Cool. I am going to get a phone call, which I'm not going to answer. But the next thing I want to do is check if we don't have the location set in the query, I want to grab it out of the cookies. So let's see if we can. Here we're getting the cookies, and we're seeing that the cookie is undefined. That doesn't make sense. But if well, actually it does make sense, because if I refresh now, that cookie should be set. And sure enough, there it is. Okay, so the way cookies are handled is it's going to be a string that looks like this. So we're getting our cookie. And then oh, that's right. I think I actually did all of this work already. So I'm going to undo that so we can redo it as we go. Let's see. I think I'm actually going to pull that over. No, that doesn't make any sense. This should be fine. So what we're going to do is undo all of that work, because I didn't want to spend too much time messing around. I hope I got the right one. Yes, I did. And we're going to essentially rebuild some of the logic that we had, because what we're dealing with is here in our main.js, the problem that we're dealing with is our cookies might look something like this. If we only have one cookie, if we have multiple cookies, we're going to get something that looks like this. So it's going to be semicolon separated, and then it could be cookie 2, equals some value. Cool. So we need to build some logic to get this stuff. And the thing that we started doing yesterday was rebuilding this helper method. This helper built in that we have available with cookies. Yeah, I'll accept that. And what do I want to do? I want to have access to be able to read the cookies. So we started out rebuilding this guy. Where is it? This class here, this cookies helper. Where is it? And that's set cookie. Methods for cookies. So essentially, working with a string like this can be kind of a pain. So what we want to do is be able to pass a string like this and convert it into some sort of object that we can work with and grab the pieces we need and remove things and modify things and do stuff that we want to do. So we started with an object. I think I might actually restart here, and let's do cookies, a class-based approach the old-fashioned way. So we're going to say export function cookies, and it's going to take, what does it accept? The cookies header and options are the two things that it takes. And the cookies header should be a string. So let's do that. That should be a string. And options should be an object, which we can leave as that. Object doesn't actually mean anything. I think it's equivalent to any. But for the time being, we're going to go with an object just to keep it simple. And then I actually don't want to just export that just yet. I'm going to export cookies. Can I do that? No, you have to name it something else. So export const cookies equals cookies. And this is going to be you and you are going to be renamed to cookies class, something like that. Cool. So we've got that. When we create it, we're going to say, what do I want to do first? So we want to be able to parse that, right? So I'm going to say when this is executed, we're going to say const cookies equal to a thing. So let's look at what these cookies are actually going to do. We are going to store this information, key value pair, separate different key value pairs, in some sort of data structure. And we have a couple options to choose from. And as we think about it, let's look at some of the methods we're going to have to call on here. One, on this object, we're going to want to store the information as a data structure. We're going to want to call toHeader, which should take that data structure and rebuild it into the cookie and the value, the key value pair as a string. So basically, we're going to have to iterate over each of the values that we have and build out a string from it, we're going to want to be able to get values. We're going to want to get all of the values for a given name. We're going to want to grab all the names and add new values and delete some values. So as I look at this, the first data structure that comes to mind is going to be an object like this. So that when I get, my cookies header, I can say, uh, what's it going to tell me to do? That's interesting. That's going to return an object, which is not what we want, but I do like to look. Oh, I do like to look at this code. Get, gonna split on that, find the cookie. Well, anyway, I don't need to spend all the time doing this. Cookies is going to be that, right? And the reason why we start with an object is because we know that we want to be able to set a cookie header that's going to be like location, and then that's going to be something like Portland, Oregon, right? And that's pretty nice because we know that eventually we're going to have a getter that is like cookie class.prototype.get is a function that takes the key and then returns this.cookies.key, right? So this is kind of the old way of doing classes in JavaScript. Um, and this works pretty well. If I get rid of that, it turns it into a function. But if I add that, it makes it a class. That's kind of cool. The coloring. And this works pretty well. However, if we wanted to, let's see, that handles the get pretty easily. But when we want to do like to the headers, we could do something. Let's actually mock out these functions. Yeah. So let's do cookies prototype. We don't need a set. We want get all equals a function. It's going to take a name. This is going to take a name, and then this is actually going to be this dot cookies equals cookies. Cool. That's settled. Turn this dot cookies. This is actually going to return all of the names. Is that names? I want names. Names, right? We don't need name. This is going to return all of the key values in this object. So I guess I'm spending a lot of time explaining something that we're not going to want to do. But we can basically accomplish this by saying object dot keys of this dot cookies. And what object dot keys does is it returns all of the keys in an object. We would take all the keys and basically just return location as an array, which is great. Where we run into an issue though is this method here, get all. And the way get all works is it will take a name of a cookie and it will return all of the values for that cookie. So this is something that I was not really aware of until I started looking deeper into cookies, is you can have multiple cookies with the same name. And actually I did want to touch on another data structure that we could have used is a new map, which is a new map, which is pretty cool because instead of the object syntax, we could have done something like this, but this is going to be a two-dimensional array, comma, like that. Same thing. And that's pretty cool. And the thing that I really like about maps is you can get individual values very quickly, but you can also loop over each value very quickly. Long story short, we're not going to do that. The reason being that, yeah, once again, this get all is a real stickler because apparently uh, cookies can have more than one value for the same name. So if we look here, we can see cookie one has value one, cookie one has value two. And that's actually perfectly within the spec. So in order to account for that, we can't use an object because an object has unique keys. We cannot use a map because a map has unique keys. So the solution that I'm going to go with is actually a two-dimensional array. So we're going to say that cookies is going to equal an array. And then the cookies header we know is going to be that string that looks kind of funny. So we're going to say for const cookie of cookies header split. Cool, very clever that it knew that we're dealing with cookies. We split on the semicolon space, I believe. And then for each one that we have, we are going to push cookies dot push, and then yeah, we want to get the next two-dimensional array. Or right now we have a single dimensional array as we split here, and then we get a nested array here. Or I guess we have a single array here, and then we push in an array of key value pairs. So this should look something like name and value. That's what we want. Which, yeah, I'll leave that comment there because it makes sense. And then we assign, yep, this dot cookies equals cookies. I think the common practice for protected or private properties on classes like this is to use an underscore. So that's what we would have to, that's what we're going to do to instantiate our class and just set up the cookies. And then we'll go through some of these other methods where we have, let's see, the first one I actually want, we'll do that one last, to header. So to header, and we'll just do that as an empty function. We've got get all. So get all. And then names and add. So names, and I think I'm going to do one more here. Oops, I want to copy, paste. And here, close that up. And we're going to call this one add. So cool. This is basically the prototype for our cookies, working with cookies class. And the way this works is, let's first look at adding a new value. So adding takes a name and a value. Name and a value. Those we're going to add some params for. It should be a string and a string. Cool. And then the way that this is going to work is we're going to say this cookies at name equals value. Perfect. I think that looks good. No. Sorry, this cookies push, because this is going to be a two-dimensional array. This should actually be like that. Okay. So my cookies class, I think we want Yeah, that's what we want. One thing I kind of want to do is JS doc for, I don't know, classes? No, prototypes? What is it? Prototypal inheritance sort of thing? How do you document prototype methods? No, I want, let's go back to beginning and look up a class. I don't want ES 2015 classes. This is what I want. That is a class, sure. Yeah, I know that already. Constructs. Make class lens. That's not what I want. I want to add a property. Of a class, though. Tag is a way to easily document a list of static properties of a class. Okay, well, we don't have an example of a class. Maybe it's as simple as property, which is underscore cookies. It's going to be, let's say it's a string. That would complain about this. Or maybe it's as easy as doing this. We'll just say you at type. Oh, well, first of all, I had that wrong anyway. So let's see if I can. See if I can actually get this right. This should be a string, and then that should be cookies, and that still doesn't register, so that's fine. This should be, okay, so it's complaining, which is correct. This actually should be a two-dimensional array strings. Now it's happy. You can write it either way. I think that when we have nested arrays, I like using the actual array word. I think it's more clear that way. And then if I say like c equals new cookies class with that, and then I say c dot underscore cookies, cool. It does register that that's a two-dimensional array. Perfect. Which means this should know now that, yep, it registers as a two-dimensional array. That's great. JavaScript is awesome. Cool. So next we want to define this get method, which I don't think we currently have written correctly. So let's see what we've got here. So the way this works, right, is we have this dot cookies is a two-dimensional array. And unfortunately, because we can have multiple entries with the same name, we can't use an object and we can't use a map. So we can't do a direct lookup. But what we can do is we can say, I'm actually not going to return that right away. I'm going to say this dot cookies dot find. And what find lets me do is pass a callback function that lets me find exactly what I'm looking for. This looks like it is what I want, where we take the cookie, which in this case is a pair, it's an array, key value array, where the first key is the key or the name, and the second value is the value. So we've got that, and we're going to say const cookie equals, and we find that. If there's no cookie, meaning we haven't found any, we can just return, uh, and I think that that's what the syntax says. We're looking for get, yep, description. If no cookie exists, return undefined. That's great. If otherwise, we know that the cookie exists. So yeah, we can return the second value in the cookie array, which would give us a value at that name. Cool. I think that one is done. Next, we're going to do get all. Get all is going to look pretty similar to, well, not quite so similar actually. So we are going to return this dot cookies, and then we're going to filter out just the ones that we want based on the name. So yeah, we filter that, and then the return value actually, what filter does is it returns an array, and I think we want an array, but in this case, we would have the key value pairs as an array, and what we want is get all is going to return all of the values. So now that we've filtered out the pairs that we want, we're going to map and take the cookie and return the cookie value. So this looks good. This is sure, and this is value. Oh, this is not good. So this is filter out just cookies with the given name, and this is map to just the values. Cool. Add some documentation there to make it easier for the next person that reads our code. Next, we're going to do the names. So this one is also going to be pretty easy, I think. This is not the example that we want. So here we want just the unique list of names available. So the first thing we're going to do is get all of just the names, I think. So we're going to say const all names equals this dot cookies dot maps, return, take the cookie pair and return just the first index. And then we're going to do exactly what it's saying here, where we're going to return a new array. And what this array, this little trick here is, what this little trick here does is we're going to generate a new set from this list of names. And what a set is a data structure that only allows unique values in it. So if you try to push a value there that already exists, it just doesn't do anything. So we're generating a new set from the list of existing names, which may or may have duplicates. And that ends up getting us a set with just unique values. And then we're using the spread operator to take all of those unique values and spread them out into this new array. So we'll just say here, remove duplicates. Cool, looks good. So far, so good. We've got our old style class. And I think the last thing I need to do is find a way to convert it back to a string. So right now it's taking a string like this and building out this two-dimensional array. And then it's going to, with toHeader, we're going to return it to that value. Right, names doesn't take, make sure all my key values are good, or all my parameters are good. I want to make sure they're also documented. Param is a string for the name. Right, name. There you go. And the same thing for you. So that'll be clear what that is. Key and value is string. And then the last one is converting it, right? So what we're going to do is some sort of array math or array magic. And why don't they just write it all for us? Thanks, GitHub Copilot. So what this does is this takes the array of key value pairs, and it's going to convert that from each key value pair. It's going to take that key value pair and turn it into a single string. So instead of an array of key value pairs, at this point, we have an array of strings. And then it's going to join those arrays of strings and with a semicolon and a space in between. Hope that is clear. But that is the code that we want to do. And I think that that's ready to go. So with that exported, we should be able to now come up here and import it. Should be able to say that cookies. Let's see if we can do this. Console log new cookies, and we'll pass in the request get header cookie. So we'll get the cookie header, pass that into the new cookies. Remember that the cookie header should look like this. And then we can see what that says. So let's see what we got. Come back here, refresh, go to our console. And it looks like we do have what we would expect. We have this cookies property, which is supposed to be like a private thing. Wonder if there's a way to make those private. JS doc. Private. Access package. Private. The symbol is meant to be private. See if this will work. So right now in my code, let's go back up here and say where I assign it. That's my type. I'll mark it as private. Private and only accessible within the class, cookies class. I feel like I'm in there. Or maybe I'm not doing that right. Well, let's not rock the boat too much. Cool. Great. So that should be working. If we say console, let's see, const cookies equals cookies. And we can say cookies dot cookies. Okay, no, we're good. That's fine. We're going to say cookies dot, and then we have all of our things. Yep, add, delete, get all, names, and 2 header. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. We're going to say we have our query, we have our cookies. I kind of want to put the cookies under the query. Don't need that anymore. And we've got our headers. If else, if cookies.get location, it's just going to write it for us. Location equals cookies.get location. I think we can maybe even simplify this, right? We can say the location is coming from the cookie. If the query has the location, then we'll set that. Otherwise, if there is not the location, then the location is going to equal this. Something like that. Location equals, and we're saying just faking it. So yeah, we can say New York, New York. Sure, why not? So that is my logic. Yeah, pretty happy with that. We're saying the location is coming from the cookie. If the query has the location, we're going to reassign that value to the query's location, and then we're going to set the cookie setter to that. If the location at this point does not exist, we're going to pull that from the request user location, or in this case, we're just faking it. So let's see where we are today. I should have a location set in my cookies. Well, I have a location set here, right? That's set to Bend, Oregon. So if I get rid of the query now and I reload, I should see it's still set to Bend, Oregon. Great. Now, if I remove that cookie and I reload, I should, and reload. Oh, didn't like that. Cookies header dot split. Cookies header should be string. Set that as a string. And then this is also going to be an optional thing, which sure can be an empty object. I'm not going to use for the time being. So let's reload that. And here we go. We see New York, New York, New York, US. That's awesome. No cookie is set. If I reload, we still have no cookie set. If I reload, we still have no cookie set. It's just going to keep jumping around to wherever I'm at, which is useful because if I were to take my laptop and go to a different city, I don't want that cookie in there necessarily. So that does become an interesting story, right? That can become an interesting story. Well, I think it's fine. For the time being, this is cool because now I can just say, cool, let's look at Portland, Oregon, and submit that. And now we can see that I'm getting the weather for Portland, Oregon, which is coming from there. That's awesome because that also means that we can actually get rid of that and go back to using this information. Okay, user location doesn't have state. What does it have? Region. Cool, good to know. This is great because now we don't have to use the fake data that we were using unless we delete our cookies. So delete that, we reload. It's going to be somewhere that probably doesn't exist because it's going to be, right. Need to clear out my query. Then I can reload there. And then interesting that we have East Annaboro, Texas in Morocco. And somehow we did get weather for that. Great. No weather for Manberg, Utah, Belize. So this is the funny thing about randomly generating data. But the cool thing is that we can go back to saying Bend, Oregon, and it will work. And there's my cookies, and that's working, and that's great. Now the next thing that I need to do is actually fix how we're setting cookies here, because this is also not quite the way that I want to do things. So we're going to go back. Let's see. We don't need that. We don't need that. And then all back to server location if location is set. Cool. Great. We're almost done. So the next thing that I want to do is rebuild this. Let's see. We finished that. That wasn't quite what we wanted. But now that we've built a class in the sort of old-fashioned way, we're going to build a class with ES6, ES 2015. And we're going to say constructor, the constructor, this is all going to be based on this set cookie fella. Set cookie can take a cookie header and options as well. Cookie header and options. And those are going to be a string or an object, I think. Is it string or object? What was the other one? String or array. Interesting. We're going to leave that as how that was, but this can be a string or an object because this is how we're going to just create a random cookie. So that we're going to set to an object. And I think for now, I'm actually going to leave that as just an object. So we might deal with the string one later. But we're just going to say that has to be an object. That's optional. And it defaults to an object. And this is also going to be the same thing. Defaults to an object. And this is an object. And we'll deal with the values of that some other time. So now what I want to do here is essentially, because we have this set cookie thing, I'm actually going to define all of the things that we're going to need on this cookie itself. So, or like all the properties that it's going to have. So it's going to have a name, which is going to be a string. And I think I'll just default it to an empty string. Equals string. It's going to have a value. It's going to have a domain. It's going to have a path. It's going to have expires, which is not going to be a string. It's going to have a max age, HTTP only, secure, same site, And I think that's it. Um, okay. So the reason why we have string set for these is because these are going to be string values, and setting them to an empty string gives them that value to begin with. Expires, though, is actually going to be type of date. Max age is going to be a type of number. HTTP only is going to be false because we want those to be booleans. And then uh, same site, we should maybe default to some value. Nah, I don't think it matters. But that's going to be a type of a tuple, I think, or well, it's going to have a few different options. One is strict. One is lax, and one is none. So those are the options available to same site. It can be one of those three. Got string, date, number, and I'm going to put this that this is number in seconds because that just so that it's less confusing that it's a number in seconds. Cool. HTTP only and secure. All right. So the methods on this are just one method, and that is set it to header. So we're going to have a function down here. It's going to not take any parameters. It's just going to say equals all that. That's kind of close, but not quite what I want. What I'm actually going to do is get all of the values out of this object with some destructuring. So now I have all of these available, and we are going to return a string. And then we're going to say if there's not a name or there's not a value, we're just going to return thing. Cool. And then we're going to say let cookie equal the name equals the value. And that should have a semicolon after it. And then we're going to say, sure, if there's a domain, say this is domain plus equals that with the semicolon. If there's a path, the cookie plus equals the path. If there is expires, we do want expires to be a new date just in case we get a different value that somehow ends up being a number because maybe the person using this doesn't have the TypeScript IntelliSense. They may be passing in some milliseconds or something. This will convert it to a number. This actually should be to GMT string. Is that not a thing? Okay, prototype to. Oh, this is deprecated. Okay, cool. Well, UTC, please use UTC. Okay, interesting. Whoops. No. UTC string. Okay, cool. And then we want to check if the max age, if max age is there, and then if it's HTTP only, if it's secure, and if same site, cool. And I think that actually does it. So GitHub Copilot stepping in for a lot of that help there. But we're basically going through each of these, and if the values are defined, we are passing them to their corresponding cookie parameter. So with that done, we should be able to also get set cookie. And here, we want to say headers.setCookie is equal to a new set cookie where we can pass in our keys and our values. We're going to say name is location, value is location, which is essentially the same thing that we had. So that should return the same thing, but I think this does make it a little bit simpler for us to work with these in the future in case we ever want to do, I don't know, all of those complicated cookie things. I guess you could do it as a string, whatever, but this is a built-in that we wanted to recreate anyway, so we did. Right. I haven't finished the constructor here yet. And that is because, so what we have so far actually won't work. This is GitHub Copilot telling me all of the things that it's going to assign to the values that are being passed in, but I'm actually going to do it in a little bit more of a clever way and just say object.assign to this object, the class, we're going to assign the object that is passed in. So with that, we should get all of these overridden. So that should do. And I think with that, let's make sure that we have things working the way they were. We reload the page, everything should work with Bend. We go back to Portland and everything should work. And we are in Portland, Oregon. We are not quite there. So let's log that. Oh, duh, because it is an object. That's because it should be to header. Cool. Let's delete that. Let's reload. The query should be still saying Portland, Oregon. That should be updating my location parameter here, and that's looking good. One thing we may want to do is like obfuscate that, but I think this is okay for now. So that is the cookies side of things. I think that that is working pretty well. I wonder if do I want to put the location in here? Or maybe, I don't think I do. I don't think there's much value in having the location printed in two places. So let's actually go down to where that value is and just clear that out. We're going to say search or update location. And then we need to do some styles here as well. We're going to take this and wrap that in a div. And that's going to have a class of flex with a gap of 8. And then we'll reload that. Cool, update location, Portland, Oregon. And I'm going to move this form below. No, I guess not. Instead of update location, I'm just going to put search location. Search location. Leave that. And then that, of course, should have class of margin bottom 16. Cool. Let's say weather for Portland, Oregon. And then maybe BR, BR, and then a small for the date. Let's see how this is going to look. I don't think I need that to be a small. I can be a span, and we're going to give that a class of size, or I guess I can do h6. Cool. Okay. That BR sure is taking a lot of space. No, it's not going to work. Let's say margin 0, heading 0, height, oops. Oh, undo, no, exit, undo. Height 0. That may be it. Yeah, I could do that. I think I'm just going to stick to making it a display grid. Grid. Oh, I don't have display grid defined. Okay, I have flex defined. Let's go here and say grid, display grid. I'm surprised that I have not built this entire, I've built this entire app without a display grid. Well, now we have it. Pretty happy. So this is looking pretty cool. We have the weather for Portland, Oregon, current, hourly, daily. It's all pretty freaking fast. We have our location that we can update. We can get rid of that, and it's still set to Portland, Oregon. And that's pretty good. I think there may be a couple other accessibility things I'd like to do, or just do one more scan on it. But that is everything that I really wanted to build for this project. So yeah, happy with that. Trying to think next things. The design, I'm pretty happy with the design. I don't know what you think. Would love to hear your comments. But the network, not a lot of network requests. The total thing is 123 kilobytes. That's pretty good. That's including images too. Let's see my Lighthouse scores. And of course, this is going to be based on a dev server environment. So a lot of the performance stuff is not going to be up to snuff, but that's pretty cool. right, performance is bad as we expected because it's on a local server. Would be much faster in production. Um, some image elements. So probably this one we could put an explicit width and height on. Uh, all that stuff is not a problem. Accessibility, 100%. Love it. HTTPS, CSP, images with low resolution. I guess those are low resolution. That's interesting. And then SEO. We don't really care about SEO, although we could add the meta description quite easily. And of course, right now it's not going to be a PWA. So yeah, that's the project. That's as far as we're going to get today. We did all the cookie stuff. We enhanced our cookies classes over here, which is pretty cool. And yeah, that's it. I feel happy about that. I guess tune in next week. I will be back on my normal schedule, and hopefully over the weekend the world will not be quite so crazy. But in the meantime, I hope that you are staying safe. I hope that your family's safe and healthy and happy. And yeah, let me know if you have any comments or questions or just want to say hi. And until next time, I'll see you later.